Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Psychosap and this is episode 15 of the F1 2022 calendar series. So we're here in the Netherlands for the Zandvoort Dutch Grand Prix. Now this track was last used in 1985 before returning to the F1 calendar last year, 2021. Now as we all know, Max Verstappen gave the Netherlands their first home victory last year in 2021, and we're yet to see what kind of fun action Zandvoort has to offer this year. Let's be honest, this is a difficult circuit, requires a lot of focus, but I absolutely love it for its beautiful banking and uphill, downhill. Wow, what a track. Now the only addition is that I have a rain forecast for the race, so we're gonna have to set up the car differently, and the curbs on this track are so punishing, so we're gonna have to keep an eye on that. So that was my first lap out. It was horrible. It's P11, which is an absolutely unimpressionable time, so we're definitely gonna have to go out on another set of softs. So let's go ahead and see if we can grab a better position for tomorrow's race. A few laps around Zandvoort on wet conditions in time trial. I was absolutely enjoying myself out there. It was so fun to drive this track in the wet conditions, and I hope I get some rain there in the race tomorrow. So here we go then, our second and final lap of the race, and we did have a bunch of traffic, a couple of Williams right in front of me, so I did not gain as much time as I would have liked to get a better position for the start, but it is what it is, and let's see if we can get a P6 then. That is a good starting position for tomorrow. Let's hope we can have a great race start and let's have fun out there. This is a really good and punishing track, of course.
Russell, Leclerc and Max Verstappen. The stage is set and the curtain is rising for another Formula One Grand Prix. We're expecting close fights up and down the field today, so hold on tight, we're moments away from lights out. Zandvoort circuit has 14 corners, 10 to the right and 4 to the left, with plenty of steep camber and elevation changes to keep our drivers on their toes throughout the 2.6 mile lap. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. George Russell will begin today's event in pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Sainz, and Sir Lewis Hamilton, and Perez. Fernando Alonso, Bottas, Gasly, and Daniel Ricciardo. Tsunoda, Ocon, Kevin Magnussen, and Mick Schumacher. Norris, Latifi, Alex Albon, and Sebastian Vettel. Joe and Lance Stroll brings the grid to a close. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? Natalie Pinkham joins me once again in the commentary box. It's fantastic to have you with us today. I'm curious though, how do you think the drivers stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the rundown into turn one, a bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It'll keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
So it seems like bad news then, guys. We did have a rain forecast, but it is sunny as heck, and we only have a rain prediction for the last few laps, or maybe not at all. So that is so bad, and I'm gonna have to set up the car as much as I can under park firming conditions to try and reduce all that drag. So reducing the front wings a lot is one of my options. Brake bias, I'm gonna let it be, but tire pressures, I'm gonna put them all the way up. But hold on, maybe a little bit of adjustment would be better for this because my ride height is quite high. So that's 9 on the front, which means maybe a little bit less tire pressure on the fronts may somehow bring the height of the car a little bit down, or a little bit balanced between the front and the back. So let's go ahead and see if this setup works, because I can definitely not use a wet setup. On this track, it is a very high downforce track, and of course that's gonna wear out my tires. I mean, instead of driving maybe 7 laps, I'll be going 4 laps on those soft tires, so that's gonna be horrible. So let's time for the Dutch Grand Prix then. I'm excited. I hope the race goes fine, and I hope it rains at the end. That's gonna make things a little bit more interesting. So let's go then. It's time for round 15 of the F1 22 calendar series, the Dutch Grand Prix. And it's lights out and away we go. Everybody gets a great start. We can see the AlphaTauri is trying to make some moves right there at the head. And our position on the track is completely different, and we gain a couple of positions right there. So we're up from P6 all the way to P2 right there in turn 1. We can see Max Verstappen then trying to make a move on the Mercedes of George Russell, it looks like. And with that raw Red Bull power, he's just getting right ahead of him on the straight. That is fantastic. But he hasn't yet made the move entirely, and the Mercedes tries to fight back, hold on for a couple of corners, but just is not able to keep that traction. And here then a couple of small mistakes, going a little bit wider than maybe required. Carlos Sainz is then looking for an overtaking opportunity on me, and we can see the car ahead, just probably Charles Leclerc and the Ferrari just getting ahead and ahead. We also have Max Verstappen right there on Carlos's tail. So a little, oh, and he makes a mistake. What an unnatural way to make a mistake right there for Max Verstappen. That just avoids the Mercedes from overtaking him. And we're gonna have to see if he can get back soon, recover from that mistake. He was getting awfully so much closer to Carlos Sainz, and I thought he would be able to make an overtake on him. But then Carlos Sainz trying to make an overtake on me. We can see the side-by-side action through turn 1, but there just isn't enough space or room, and we don't give him enough space and room to stay on the outside there. So he just attempt number 2 then, and Carlos Sainz just doesn't have that pace in the Ferrari to make that overtake on me. Now another point to note here in Zandvoort, ERS recharging is not a thing, and I was really suffering with ERS management. And at this point in the race, I had about 50% of ERS, and I was not using it because I noticed it was not recharging enough. So ERS usage is not an option in this track, and that is unique because most of the tracks do have opportunities for ERS recovery. We can see Carlos Sainz still trying to make moves on me as I make mistakes through the corners, and a little bit of tire bumping to keep him in position so that I can still maintain that position. And that has actually given George Russell the opportunity to sort of get ahead of Max Verstappen for a few corners, few inches maybe, that he is ahead of Max Verstappen. But I'm sure Max Verstappen will be able to get him back, because he did initially do that in the opening parts of this race. So there it is then, Max Verstappen trying to make a move on the Mercedes, but it is a little bit weird how he's struggling now, even with DRS wide open, after initially overtaking him without the DRS. So raw Red Bull engine power is not that good compared to Mercedes maybe? Let's see how the rest of the race goes then. As of now, George Russell is ahead of Max Verstappen and currently chasing me down. Now, to be honest, at this point of the race, I'm actually surprised that the Ferrari is still behind me, considering that I have 50 rear downforce, and that is heavy wings, and that is not what I need in this dry conditions. But let's see if he can get an overtake down on me. And of course I am struggling with those soft tires, really struggling with those soft tires. You can see how wide I'm going through most of the corners, and that of course gives Carlos Sainz an opportunity to go straight through. And we can see Max Verstappen has dropped off a little bit, but it is then time for us to pit. So Carlos Sainz also pitting with me. The only problem is he is ahead, and that is just not going to make things work. But anyway, since there's so much tire degradation and my wings, and Carlos Sainz gets held up, but the car's coming to pit lane, probably one of the McLarens. and I get ahead. Wow, what luck that was. Fantastic. Now, I chose the hard tires to try and make it go longer and give me most grip towards the end of the race, because that was quite a hard option on the soft tires as well. And I'm guessing the medium tires would have also not given me enough grip towards the end of the race. So then we get past the Haas of probably Kevin Magnussen. It wasn't too difficult. He did just give me a little bit of a DRS slipstream, so we did get ahead. Wasn't the easiest task though, to be honest, even though I was in the Red Bull. Carlos Sainz then making a few errors, and we can see him getting right there alongside Valtteri Bottas, who is doing a phenomenal job here today at the Dutch Grand Prix. Now, we're glad that there hasn't been any incidents so far or any safety car situations, so that's great, but that does of course mean that we're gonna have to use those tires all the way. And we can see then Carlos Sainz finally trying to make an overtake on Valtteri Bottas, but Bottas does not bunch, and he does not let him go past the side by side through multiple corners there. Carlos Sainz finally does get ahead of Valtteri Bottas, and that's going to be a huge relief because he was getting held up right there. Let's take a look then at the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton this time, looking to make an overtake on me. Now, George Russell had started on medium tires, so he pitted a little bit later and came out on soft tires, so we very easily lost track of him, and he's just gone so far ahead. Now, us on the hard tires, it was just a great choice because it's giving me great grip compared to, of course, the medium tires on this unfortunately high downforce setup. And Lewis Hamilton makes contact. He's going for a late dive into the corner, which has not worked out. Luckily, none of us have damage, and he is here again, back trying to make a move on me, and we keep him wider through the outside, and that almost gives him enough space to maintain that position. But with DRS, he's just so much closer, and we make a mistake there going straight through the gravel in the corner. Wow, that was a little bit of an unsafe return to the track, but I'm glad there wasn't any sort of penalty there. But this little bit of a squabble has allowed Carlos Sainz then to get ahead of Lewis Hamilton, which he does not want, and he's looking to regain that position. And there we go, Carlos Sainz makes a little bit of a mistake, and Lewis Hamilton's back up. It's almost time then, with a little bit of ERS still left in my battery pack for this exact moment. Lewis Hamilton does not look like he has much of an opportunity to be able to overtake me, and he has, of course, backed off a little bit as well, as we can see. So then it is a Red Bull again on the podium. Surprisingly, Max Verstappen does not make it, and I can only assume that he didn't have the best of races. But it is a podium then for Red Bull again. We do have Charles Leclerc and George Russell right ahead of us. It's actually quite disappointing that the game was not able to give me the right prediction for the weather conditions. I mean, it's still sunny, and it told me it's gonna rain at the end, so that is very surprising. And I wish, just like F1 Manager 2022, they actually show me a graph or something like that before I start the race, before the weekend actually, so that I can not go ahead and use a wet setup on my car for a super sunny dry condition, which was really tough on me today, but somehow did manage to get through. Anyway, it is an unfortunate situation in the game, and we're going to try and avoid these kind of things in the future. So I'm looking forward to the 2022 Dutch Grand Prix this weekend, and with the new cars, new regulations, let's see if they can just have a better race this weekend. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was episode 15. Do of course drop a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next week again in Italy. Until then, thanks and take care.